G'day guys, as you've probably heard, version 13 of Mozaik has officially been released and is available now to download from the Mozaik forum. The purpose of the video today is just to give you a run through of the things that I would change right away when updating from version 12.3 to Mozaik version 13 to be able to take advantage of these new features. Now, Bill from Mozaik has done an amazing job at creating a lot of Mozaik training videos on the new features and functions in version 13. So I highly encourage you to take a look at that, go to the forum, click on the link and watch all the breakdowns of every new feature in version 13. I think you're going to definitely get a lot of benefit out of doing that. The purpose of my video, I guess, is just to run you through in a one video take kind of thing of like what I would just change, so it's one thing to learn what the new features are, but the purpose of this video is really just to teach you how you might implement them and look at more of the specifics on, what those changes are and how you can take advantage of that right away. So no more rambling from me, I'll get right into it. Let's take a look. First of all, I'm going to start in the optimizer and just take a look at a couple of the key highlights there. First thing I would do would be to go into libraries and machines and then find your CNC. So obviously your CNC is going to have your name there of the CNC brand that you're using. What you want to do here, first of all, is enable the auto cut remnants. So I would normally have left this option off previously. So the option just to square off the sheet. The reason why I think you should enable it now is when you do tick that option, you'll see that you've got the ability to set a minimum edge length. Now, I would sort of go around about 150 to 200 millimeters, somewhere thereabouts. Again, it's a personal preference. It depends on what size parts hold down in your machine. But what this means is that with this feature enabled, and I'll just click OK on the screen here and OK again and just show you the difference here. If we look at this nested pattern, you'll see that there is no auto remnant here. And the reason why I leave it off previously is I would have had like lots of little remnants being created everywhere on the sheet where I probably didn't want them. Now with that option on, let's just go ahead and re-optimize this and you'll see the difference straight away. I've now got the remnants minimized to the 200 millimeters that I've selected. So you'll notice in areas here, it hasn't created a remnant because it's below that size, whereas areas over here, it's created a remnant because it's now above that size. So I think that's a great feature and something that you can just, it's a one tick option to enable it, set the size that works for you, and then that just saves you a step from having to manually create those remnants each time. The next thing that I would do would be to go to the Optimize tab and take a look at the new options in the list here. So the one at the very top, sequence largest parts first. Now, there's going to be scenarios where you want that on and there's going to be scenarios where you don't want that on. I think by default, I would leave that option on, as generally if you place the largest part on the pattern first, you're going to end up with a better optimization. So in this particular case, I don't really have too many big parts in this example, but you can see here that the back happened to be the largest part. So that's the first part that it placed down, and then it started filling around that. So what it means is you're going to end up with less scenarios where you've got one sheet full of lots of small parts because the parts are being scattered throughout all of the sheets as the small parts are now trying to fill around the largest part. So I think just in theory of how a nesting algorithm works, that's going to give you probably a better result in the majority of situations. And of course, if you try it and you don't like it, then you could always go back to optimize and uncheck it and then re-optimize and just compare the differences. I think you'll find on a lot of jobs, you're going to like that option enabled. And as I mentioned, there might be some jobs where you preferred the option disabled, but beauty is you can try it. It's really quick to optimize and then you can decide from there. The next thing that I would do, I would look at the options in the Toolpath Properties. So if we open the Toolpath Properties, you'll notice that this dialog's drastically changed. Most of the content there is still the same, but there are new features, of course. And I'll just run you through kind of what I would probably change initially. So on the cutout options, that's probably already been dialed in specifically for your machine. So I wouldn't go enabling or disabling ramp options if they're already enabled or disabled. I would roll with whatever's currently working. If you're just setting up Mozaik for the very first time and you've never used a CNC before, during the post-integration session, the CNC setup session, we'll go through and discuss what works best for your machine. As some machines support the helical in and out and other machines don't. So I wouldn't change any of the settings there, but what I would look at is your cut direction. You might have this already set to climb and climb or conventional and conventional. My recommendation, and I've got a different video that I've posted on this exact topic with a deep dive into cut directions and tool deflection and the whole kind of world surrounding that. My recommendation is to go conventional first, climb second. So check that video out if you want to learn more about that particular topic. And then my next recommendation would be to enable the stay down nesting strategy. So the stay down toolpathing strategy here is that it's going to loop through and continue without retracting and like leading in and leading out on every component. So the per part strategy means that the tool is going to exit and enter the material on every single part. The stay down method, it'll only enter once and exit once per path, depending on, I guess, if you're, and I'll just click ahead for a second, depending on if you're doing a full sheet onion skin or you're doing a return skin, more on that in a second. So I would go ahead and enable the stay down strategy, and the overlap you can play with there. Generally, you only really need to go a fraction past when it overlaps. I'd probably say about 2 millimeters would be a fine number to begin with. You'll notice it probably defaults to 1.6 in metric or a 1/16 of an inch in imperial. If we go across to the small parts option now, there is one new feature here where it's the ability to control the small part cutout sequence. So smallest parts is kind of the way that it is, I guess, the default method of how it's always worked. It's based on kind of the part size, and then after part size, it starts considering sort of left to right and top to bottom on the sheet, or bottom to top. And again, that's sort of changed a little bit, and I'll come to that shortly as well. I recommend looking at the shortest movement option. So especially if you are doing a sort of full sheet onion skin stay down, and again, this can sort of vary depending if you're doing stay down on or off, but I think shortest movement is, if you're not doing stay down nesting, is definitely going to be an advantage, but even with stay down, I'd probably still recommend going to shortest movement. And that's probably the only real change in this area here. The rest of it's all remain the same, just laid out slightly differently. Okay, then coming across the dados, all the same options. It's just on its own tab now with clearer visuals, so you know which one you're enabling and selecting. And then pocket in. So the pocket in option has changed. Note, shape pockets will still default to the offset style, but for square or rectangular sort of non-shaped pockets, you now have the option to choose either spiral or raster. Now, spiral basically starts in the middle of the door and spirals its way out until it gets to the outside. And then raster will sort of like a lawnmower effect. It'll start at one point, go across, and then just keep going back and forth like you're mowing your lawn. And then it will do a sort of final pass around at the end. Now, I think both of those options have merit, so I would suggest just trying this on your machine and see what works best in your scenario. The whole idea is to try and avoid the machine marks that you may experience from running the offset style. So if you noticed on offset that you're getting these kind of like little machine marks where the cutter would sort of pause and move across, then changing this to spiral or raster would definitely help alleviate and eliminate that problem. So I would probably, personally, I would go with spiral, but raster definitely has its place as well. So try both, see what you think. You do have the ability to radius the corners. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say I'm going to radius and put an arc movement on each of those corners rather than a point. Personally, I don't really feel that that's needed. I've tested it on and off and I didn't really notice a great deal of difference. Maybe the radius corner movement was slightly smoother on some machines. Like if your machine sort of has a bit more slop in the axis and maybe just struggles with corners a little bit more than other machines, then potentially radius in that might give you a bit of opportunity for the machine to sort of slow down and roll around that corner. I think probably I would leave it off because the tricky bit with the radius is that it does matter what your tool diameter is. So, you know, you don't want to sort of give it a radius that your tool diameter is not going to fit in either. So I would probably just say leaving the radius off unless you want to experiment with the different options and trying it on. But if you're unsure, probably default to it off and default to spiral. I will point out that you can enable this per machine as well. So like if you have multiple machines, you can set these options now. They're not global for all machines. You can set them per machine and you can copy the settings and just dial in and change what you need to per machine. So the highlights there would definitely be your cut direction and your cut strategy setting to stay down. Okay, so jumping out of there now, I'm going to go ahead and look at the next option. So to do that, we're going to jump into libraries and CNC tooling. So what we're going to take a look at first of all there is the option for the new pocketing application. So if I click on my 40mm hogging tool, what you'll now notice is that there's an option under application to enable a pocketing option. So we can enable the pocket and then we can go into the pocketing options, which gets us back into the area that we were previously, and you can go ahead and set that pocket strategy. Next, I'm going to go back to the toolset to show you where this applies. So in my toolset now, you'll notice that I have the 40mm hogging tool with the new pocket application. So enabling that tool as a pocket is kind of like enabling a tool as a dado tool. It means that you can have these tools auto-assigned that the best fit for purpose. So let's go back to Mozaik, the design side of Mozaik, and we'll go ahead and look at our job settings. If you're using like a shaker template, what I'd recommend, rather than just nominating a specific tool, you could then go ahead and say use pocket tool. And that's brilliant for people that are using like multiple machines, for example, or might have multiple different tool sets, and in each tool set they have a different pocketing tool. There's a great option there that you can enable use pocket tool rather than a particular tool and have to have multiple templates to manage that. Also great for the scenarios where you might have someone else cutting your jobs, that you can just enable the use pocket tool and allow their tool set to handle which tool is being used. So I'd highly recommend going through your templates and just changing your pocketing tool to the use pocket tool option. Don't forget to do that to all of the options here for doors and drawer fronts, and also the end and back panels as well. The other area where you can use this is you can also go into products and into parts, and then into say the bottom, for example, and go into edit operations. Let's say you're adding a pocket to the bottom. You can click on the pocket itself and go to select, and then you've also got the use pocket tool option there. So that way you can have these items updated and sort of saved in your library with the use pocket tool without having to assign a specific tool, which is something that our team here at CADmate is taking advantage of, rather than when we send something out, have a tool that maybe you don't have, and then you'll see an option that says, you know, tool not found. We can now alleviate that problem by assigning use pocket tool as the option. It's definitely a great option for you to take advantage of. So let's get out of there and we'll go back to the optimizer. So we're going to go back into the CNC tooling setup, and I want to talk more about tool sets. So if you've been set up by our team here at CADmate, or myself in particular, over the last 4 years, you would have noticed the way I've probably gone about setting this up is to help you manage different materials via naming your tool set specific to the material. So a typical setup would be something like this, where you've got your HMR or your particle board style tool set, you've got your MDF tool set, and you've got maybe a tool set for 25mm material and over. For our American friends, it would be, you know, something thicker than an inch, maybe plywood versus MDF as well. So depending on what materials you're using, you may have tool sets designed to assign a specific tool to the tool set. Now, as you'll see in this HMR style tool set, my tool number 1 is my 3-wing compression cutter. My tool number 2 is my 2-wing compression cutter, and I have a 12mm or 1/2 inch compression in tool number 3. Now they're all assigned to the cutout, so Mozaik is going to default to the first option in that list. At least that's how it's always worked up until version 13. So, you know, if you had an MDF list, you would typically remove the 3-wing compression, so then it can default to the second tool in the list. And then, for example, the 25mm plus, I've removed tool 1 and 2 to have the 12mm compression as the first option in the list. Now, we can eliminate all 3 of these tool sets now by just having them all in one particular tool set. So what I would recommend, look at the tool set where you have all of your tools available, copy that one and give it a new name. I'm just going to call this My Tools. And what I'm going to do here is choose the new option, cut out by material. So you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner there's a new option there. And this is assigning this only to this tool set. So it's not going to affect your other tool sets. You can still use them as they were. And you can see any of the cutout tools will now appear as an option here. So you've got your default, and you can have your default on whichever tool you prefer to be your default. I know in my material library, I probably have more MDF materials than particle board materials. So based on that, I'm going to actually default mine to the 10mm 2-wing compression cutter. And I'm going to go ahead and click the green plus symbol and look for anything that has the phrase HMR in it. So again, you can search for particular items here. So I'm going to go ahead and press select all and OK. And then what I'm going to do on any of these HMR options is I'm going to choose that I want my 3-wing compression to be the assigned cutter for this material. So the beauty of this is that you do it once and it's set and forget. So now let's go ahead and go plus and let's look for anything that's 25 millimeters and over. So again, I'm going to go for 25, select all of them. And then I'm going to roll through here. And actually some of these HMR ones, I probably did want to assign to my 12 mil because of the size. So I'll probably go ahead and change the ones that are 25 mil and 32 mil to my 1/2 inch compression. So you can go through there and, you know, I could have filtered via HMR 16 and just done the HMR 16 mil ones and HMR 18 and just done the HMR 18 mil ones. But you can go through and do this. And, you know, once you've sort of gone through and worked out which materials you want to use which tool, you can kind of go arrow down and enter through these, or just tick them off is probably the easiest option, I think. So coming through and just ticking all of these ones on. And what I've done there is I've now, and like if you want to, you can go into plus and do your MDF, but the reason why I've defaulted that one is just so I don't have to do all the MDF ones. I'm going to click OK now. So now I've got one tool set, which is going to automatically assign the right tool to the right material. So I'm going to click OK out of there, and I'm going to choose the My Tools as the example. And then depending on what material this is, so you can see I've got white HMR. Let's go ahead and optimize that. Well, actually, it's already optimized. Let's just go to patterns, and I'll click into a pattern and go to G code and calculate. And you'll see it's using my 10 mil 3-wing compression. Let's go to a different material. So let's pick up, say, the satin 18 mil, and let's go ahead and optimize that. And we'll click into one of them again, generate and calculate. And then you'll see that it's using, well, in this case, it's using my 10 mil 3-wing compression. Let's take a look at why. Actually, I've got the wrong tool set assigned. So make sure you go ahead and default the new tool set so that doesn't catch you out. But let's go general calculate, and you'll see that it is using my new default, which is the 10 mil 2-wing compression, which is what I wanted. And then lastly there, let's go ahead and go to the 25 mil, and we'll come into optimize. Again, I'm going to make sure I've got my tool set selected, and I'm going to go into optimize, and let's take a look at what tool's been assigned here. And it's the 12 mil compression, 1/2 inch compression, which is what I wanted again. So perfect. So I've got now, you know, and I can actually just optimize them all at the same time now. So this kind of feature doubles as making batch optimize a lot more realistic, because, you know, you don't have to control each material. So I could just go, yep, select all of them, go ahead and optimize them all in one hit. And that's just a lot quicker than having to optimize them all separately. And the advantages of that now is that all my tools are going to assign automatically and correctly. It's just speeding up the whole process. So I definitely think that's something that everyone should take advantage of. If you're unsure and you're feeling unsure and you don't want to like make a mess of your tool sets, then I'd just recommend booking an hour of training. Like there's enough new things in the optimizer here that 1 hour of training, you're going to get that back very quickly in the time you're going to save yourself. Just by taking advantage of these features. The next one is something that I would, while we're on the topic of training, I would highly recommend booking training for, and that's to look at the pack direction. So the pack direction is one that was previously limited to just the top left-hand corner or the bottom left-hand corner. Now, truly, it was actually just probably the bottom left-hand corner, because if you pack to the top, it would actually still pack to the bottom and then just slide everything up. So this is actually quite a big improvement, the ability to now pack to any of these corners. However, I want you to keep in mind that that's just the corner of where it's packing to. That's not controlling the zero origin on your CNC. They're two different things, and it's important that we can independently control them, because on some CNC machines, you might want to pack to one corner that's the opposite of the zero. There's plenty of machines on the market that actually mirror the output, so we might want to push it to one corner and have it mirrored back to the other direction. There's a lot of scenarios out there where we can use these two options in conjunction with each other. So I wouldn't just go ahead and like update and change the pack corner option without kind of being considerate over how that may affect where your parts land on the machine, or how it may affect where your zero origin is, because it's not going to change that output. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say, I've got my default set to the bottom left, and my machine is actually a machine with the origins at the top right. Well, I might want to pack to the top right corner. But I want you to keep in mind that without actually updating the settings in the post processor to enable that reversing of the x-axis, that your parts are now going to move to the opposite corner on the machine. They're not going to land where you think they're going to land. So I think the easiest way to sort of manage this is really to book an hour of training to go specifically through this. And why would you want to do it? Well, there's a lot of machines on the market where in the patterns, when you're looking at them, and let's just go ahead and re-optimize this now that I've set that to the top right. So I'll just go ahead and redo the HMR, and I want to sort of show you what I mean by that. So let's look at this particular part where there's a big remnant, and I'm going to remove the remnant just for clarity's sake on this, right? So let's look at these components. Now, I want them to land in that top right-hand corner, right? So a lot of machines, you would be looking at that in the bottom left-hand corner, and we've just sort of told you, look, hey, once it gets to the machine, the bottom left's actually the top right. You're looking at it kind of upside down, or you're standing on the opposite side of the machine. So the beauty of this is that we can now display it in the format and the way that it's going to cut on your machine. But that change alone is not going to alter anything in the G code, right? So that's what I want you to be concerned about. Your 0 might still be down here, and now you might be cutting, the size of the sheet, the length and width of the sheet away from your 0, which might end up, in the opposite corner or halfway along the bed, depending on the bed size compared to the sheet size. So that change is one that you should definitely look at booking some time with a trainer to go through that specifically, because there's an option in the post processor similar to the option where we had for changing your y-axis location. So the y being the 0 corner as the bottom left, we've now got the same option for the x-axis, which we would need to add in for you. So all of that to really say, like, it's a great option, and being able to pack to the specific corner that matches your machine is something that's well worth taking advantage of. For the visuals, for the printouts, for the clarity of what you're seeing versus what you get. So we want it to be basically what you see on the screen is what you get off the machine, and we can do that. But I think just tread cautiously. If you are going to have an attempt at it yourself, I'd highly recommend just booking the training and have a technician, a trainer, take care of that for you. Definitely something that I think you could take advantage of, but in the right way. Okay, let's look at the next option. I'm actually going to dive back into there for a second, because there's one more option I do want to show you in the setup, and it's the ability to control like the file locations per machine. So if you do have multiple machines, it's handy to know that you can now set the output directory specifically for each machine rather than having it just globally for all machines. And you've got a few options there as to what you may want to include as subfolders within that directory of where you're pathing it to. And then furthermore from there is the ability in the file names. You've got short, abbreviated, and long. Abbreviated was added in version 12.2 or 12.3. And custom is the new option, where you can actually specifically really control for a standard sheet, a flip sheet, and a flip part, a custom naming convention, which is really cool. Again, one of them things that if you're unsure, you can use the legend below to sort of put in different options. And, an example of like the character S and then the S variable would be like the sheet number, and then the revision number. And then, for example, it's going to pull this option through like sheet number 1, revision number 1 with the material. And then if there's a specific tool, if you're just using a tool that has one machine, you might want to include the tool name in that as well. So a lot of good options, and you can kind of type whatever you'd like there as well, like your own, not so much variables, but your own characters in there too. So great option where you can really control the format to be whatever you want it to be. I would probably roll with abbreviated unless you had a specific reason for wanting to control those names and have those dialed in to suit your workflow. But the option's there, which is great. And I think the option would be more specific to people that are looking at using second phase machines like vertical boring machines or point-to-points, pod and rail, any kind of second phase cutting. But it could still be taken, you could still take advantage of it with a regular nesting CNC as well. Okay, so let's get out of there. Only a couple of more ones I want to look at in the optimizer, and one of them is a real simple one actually, but it's quite a good option. If you're printing labels and you're printing them on a roll label from the office, you've probably wasted a lot of time just rolling them up by hand, and you wait till the whole thing's printed out so you can grab the last one and then roll it backwards, so that way the first label is where you need it to be. The ability now to print the roll in a reverse order is in the optimizer preferences. So reverse roll label order. I definitely would say, if you are printing on a roll, then you just print the whole roll out. You definitely want to tick that one on, because then you can just roll it up as it comes out. Now, one other thing I will add to that is I'm going to show you a little video here. So let me just drag this onto the screen so you can see it. So most people would just be hand rolling, but you can get label rewinders, and I would highly recommend with this new option, it's worth investing in a label rewinder, because rather than you standing there and doing this, you can just have a label rewinder rolling those labels up and saving you a lot of time. The beauty of that, now that the last label is going to be on the inside of the roll, and the first label that you need is going to be the one that's at the end of the roll. So reversing the roll order was an important new feature to be able to take advantage of features like this or options like this. So I would definitely recommend looking at purchasing a label rewinder. Cool. So that was one of the new features there. Let's get out of there. And then the last one I want to look at is not really something you need to enable, but just something you can take advantage of, which is the new bumping option. So all you need to do there is hold down the shift key and then just press the up, down, left, right arrow, and your parts will then bump around in those options, in those directions. And you can highlight multiple components and then do the same thing. So I can go shift left, shift down, shift right, and shift up. So pretty cool. And you can also do that with, I'll just get out of there. You can also do that with the rotation as well. So it's the shift and then Q, the letter Q will rotate that. So you can go ahead and rotate it and then sort of shift bump and get that where you want it to be. So pretty cool. I think you're going to find that that just saves a lot of time when looking at stacking these things. So you can just basically drag that to where you want it, shift and bump and move it around. So the ability to bump in all four directions, which has also been added to the right click menu. You've got the little shortcut keys there to do the same thing. All right, so that's pretty much it for the optimizer. There are a couple of little minor things, but again, I'd probably suggest just taking a look at Bill's videos where you're going to run through each of them individually, but they're the key highlights. They're the things that I would really focus on adding, unless you're an enterprise level customer, and then you've got the new runs and also the ability to do horizontal boring and things like the ability to send to point-to-points or vertical boring machines. So you've got some amazing new features there to take advantage of if you're at that enterprise level of subscription. Now let's get out of the optimizer and we'll go and just take a look at a couple of the key quick highlights in the front end design of Mozaik, which I would say to take advantage of. One of them, or the first one I'd probably say, is go to your layers and enable the new option to dimension an invisible wall. So just into your room layers and then down to your plan dimensions, and it's just a checkbox there for dimensioning invisible walls. So that way your islands will now be dimensioned. So you can go ahead and enable that. You can also notice that we've added line weights. So you'll be able to go ahead and control the style of line and the thickness of the line as well. So, if you wanted like specifically your walls to appear darker or a thicker line than the cabinets, then you can go ahead and enable it now. So you can go in and select your walls and then go ahead and uncheck Mozaik defaults. And then let's say I just go for a 2 there on the wall. You'll see that the walls have become a lot more solid and thicker, and so they stand out more. You can also enable an option there, and this is probably the next one that I would look at in walls, is the new wall fill option. So you'll notice as soon as I enable that, it becomes a nice sort of shaded gray color, just giving you the ability for the walls to be a little bit more defined. So feel free to enable that option too. I think that just makes it a little bit clearer when you're looking at a hidden line view that that's the wall and then the cabinets against that. So play around with your dimensions and have a look at, what type of line style you like, because, you might want to go into your elevation views and do the same thing. You might want to control the way your adjustable shelves or fixed shelves or drawers appear and the line style and colors and thicknesses. So definitely have a bit of a play around with that, because it's going to help clean up your drawings and just get them looking that little bit nicer as well. And the last one I'm going to leave you with today is the new job notes feature. So if we go into the job settings, you'll previously remember that there was the job site data option. And when that option was removed, we realized a few people were actually using that for, I guess, an unintended use, which was ability to store job notes somewhere and reference those notes elsewhere. So we've gone ahead and given you the ability to create your own job notes. And then this has gone a step further, because now you can really automate this, and you can have this linked to not just multi-print, but also your label that comes out on your CNC as well. So this is pretty cool. Let's take a look. We'll go into Manage Fields, and we'll press the green symbol to add a field. Now I'm gonna use this example as just my color, right? So, and this could be like color 1. It could be, you could add as many of these as you need. I'll do that actually. I'll call this color 1. And this can be a short text field, or it can be a long text field, or it can be a combination box or a checkbox. There's various options there. So you can really add as many of these, and Bill's videos are great at covering various uses for where you might want to, fill this out. I'm going to show you a real quick highlight here, and I'm going to call this, let's say, underscore C1 or C1. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to clash with anything. I'll just say C1. And there's my color 1. For this particular job, I'm going to call this Polytech Oasis as my color, and then I'm going to click OK. So, for this job, that's what I've answered the question as. So for example, you might just make it a part of your workflow process to say, hey, the color for this job is this, and then your team can fill that out. You can make that a drop-down menu if you really like, but I think the beauty of something like this is just being able to type whatever you'd like and then have it referenced somewhere. So let's go first of all into, I'm going to go into File, Print, and Multi-Print, and take a look at using this on my multi-print template. So let's say I want to edit my template. I'm going to right click and go edit current title block, and then let's zoom in here. So you'll see I'm going to delete this one and go into my symbols library, and then I'm going to branch, actually I'm going to go into variables, and then open up the job tab, and then I'm going to come down and you'll see the new job notes option appear. So I'm going to drag this out and drop this on, and then I might go ahead and just sort of expand that to fit the cell. And I might just make that a touch bigger actually, so that fits that cell nicely. Let's zoom in a little bit closer so it's nice and easy to grab and nice and easy to expand. And let's go ahead and right click on that and go edit text selection, and we'll go ahead and stack that to the left, and I'll fit it to the bounds. And now let's go ahead and click OK out of there, and you'll see Polytech Oasis as the answer coming through. Of course, you can put like a note of what that actually is or what it's referring to. So you can have that on your templates and title blocks, which is really cool. And further to that, you can actually put it on your label. So let's go into File, Print, and then Print Labels. And we'll go into Edit there and into the, let's say I'm going to pick one of my label designs, and I'm going to get rid of my material selection, and I'm going to go into Variables and same area, Job tab, right down the bottom, Job Notes. Expand this one out, and I'm going to do the same thing, expand to fit the cell. I'm going to right click and make that stacked to the left, fit it to bounds, click OK. And you might want to make it, you can play around with the font and the style and everything in your object settings as per normal, whether you want to make it like a bold appearance or whatever it is. Let's go press preview, and you'll see straight away on that preview, a little bit hard because I can't zoom in on this particular picture, but Polytech Oasis is showing there. So pretty cool, and you can obviously write whatever you want next to it as well, but great way of being able to tag a note on a job that then can be translated across onto your label, which I think is just a great way of being able to pass information from something in the job that you deem important for the guys in the factory to know about when it hits, when they see the plans or they see the labels or stickers that are coming through from the machine. So that's an overall highlight of version 13 and the things that I would say, take advantage of right away. Definitely recommend booking in some training to take advantage of some of those higher level features in the stacking of the parts and updating your tool sets as well if you're unsure. But reach out, we've got our support available as well. So reach out to either your local Mozaik help desk support team. And thanks for watching. I appreciate everyone's time. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out or drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.